This is part two. Part two has an excellent collection and is live right now.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We apologize for the interruption we had in our YouTube. We did stop our meeting, so you have not missed anything. I'm going to go to Christy Martin. Christy, do you have any questions for Barbara or Candace?
Not at present.
All right. Glenn Carter, do you have any questions for Barbara or Candace?
No, I don't have it.
All right, thank you. All right, we have no further questions within the cafeteria at the high school. Barbara and Candace, thank you very much for that presentation. Very enlightening, and I know you're both doing a terrific job to get those numbers to kind of be trending downward, so thank you very much. All right, we'll go on to our next presentation. Our next presentation is a portrait of a graduate. This evening we have with us Carissa Coro, who has been working with us for a portrait of a graduate, so she's going to kind of give us an update of where we stand with our portrait of a graduate.
Good evening, everyone.
Poet?
You're probably going to have to come up front here
Yeah.
so they can hear you with the microphone and everything.
So this is just a quick update for you for March. We're almost done the portrait work in terms of coming up with, yeah, I'll stand up there in a second.
That'd be perfect, thank you.
Yep. In terms of getting some initial language down. And so I think Dan, I sent this to you earlier, Dan, so you could put this on the website perhaps.
We can, we haven't yet, but we will.
Yeah, but we
Yep.
will, yeah,
Yep.
so that folks online can see it. So what you have here is just an initial draft graphic of what the portrait will look like. So we have a abbreviated cityscape with things specifically from Franklin. So our designer took some ideas from the community, the Historical Society, and then recreated those for an abbreviated cityscape. We have the wheel, which we're still working out. And the language on the wheel are overarching ideas, sort of big buckets, big competencies that we're looking for a portrait of the graduate. We will probably wordsmith those a little bit. So on the final portrait that we present to you in June, social awareness, for example, is one that we're really struggling with, so there might be a different word, but in general, these are the 6 buckets we're looking at. So we want students to be committed to learning, to be committed to their wellness, similar to what Barb and Candace just talked to us about. The community said that they want students to be community-minded and participating in community. Perseverance, resourcefulness is one word that came up a lot. Personal responsibility and social awareness. And so this is general graphic. We would love your feedback on anything about this graphic. So things like colors, if you're like, we forgot this really most important thing in terms of Franklin landscape that must be on there, that we can include in there. We do have a little bit of work to do with the wheel for sure. And then anything else that you think we should put on there. Or if you have any other ideas about, in terms of graphics, we can also create something different.
I do.
Okay.
Remove Silk March.
Okay.
It's in Northfield. They call it Silk March.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the progress update, so March and April, we're going to be doing some action planning. So part of the work for Bar Foundation and in our grant reporting is to create an action plan. And so we'll be working with administration to create an action plan where we're going to think about how we're going to implement the portrait. April 14th, we have a working group meeting. You're all invited to attend if you'd like. And that's just another opportunity to look at the language and do some wordsmithing, and also look at some additional data coming in from students and student feedback. In May, we're going to be doing a whole month of community feedback. We'd like to come back to this place, maybe not a school board meeting, but a different type of meeting where we can sort of put some Post-its on the board around the room and really work on this portrait and give some feedback that way. And then we'll come back to you in June with a presentation of a final portrait. And final is not is not an exact word. So when you're thinking about portrait of the graduate work, it's really a constant iteration, right? So your values this year might not be your values in 3 years or 4 years, or as you start to implement a portrait, you might feel that something doesn't quite work, so you're gonna make some adjustments. And then Jewel will work on, and Carrie too, and Tim, on professional development and planning again in the summer. So that's a general timeline. And on the back, I have some just key updates or key highlights. So we've done canvassing, we have done surveys, we've done interviews with students, we have student groups going. So we've gotten 323 different pieces of input from the Franklin community. That's students, parents, community members. Some of you might have saw at the transfer station or at farmer's market or at voting or other places. We've created some videos to help the community understand the importance of the portrait work. So Tim and Dan participated in that. We've got some other folks. Carrie did one for me. That was great. We've engaged students through art projects right now at the elementary school. They're doing little graduation caps that they're creating of what they hope to be when they grow up. And that's the question we ask. So some of them, the kids are writing, I want to be kind. So it's not necessarily the profession they want to be, but what kind of person they want to be when they grow up. So we'll present that and create a artwork with that. We've worked with high school advisory students. We have a student working group that meets on Mondays, and then we're working to think about how we can engage the middle school students in this, so Ken's working on that. And we have done extended interviews with alumni. And then, of course, because this is work with Bar Foundation, there are, I think, 12 other high schools in New England that are working on this same project this year. And so we have occasional meetings that we connect with them so we can learn about what they're doing. And also Bar Foundation has a larger community of schools that have been doing this work for 5 years. So we're able to connect with a school, say, that started this 3 years ago. And so we can see how their process was and what they've learned in their process, and then we can learn from that. So that is a basic update.
Thank you, Chris. All right, no more do we get. Is there anybody in the room here for board members who've got questions? Deb?
Where would the community find the videos that have been created for them to view?
So if you go onto the school website or the app, there's a separate link to Portrait of the Graduate that links to a website, and we have those videos there. We also have a Facebook page that the videos are on there as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions within the cafeteria? Okay, seeing none, I'll go out. We'll start with, again, Christy, do you have any questions for Carissa?
No, I don't. All done.
We will get this, because we all just received this, as Carissa said, we all just received this pamphlet tonight. So Dan will get that out to you and Glenn.
It's in the school board folder.
Okay, it's in the school board folder, I'm being told. So you'll be able to view it. So you're all set. Okay, Glenn, do you have any questions for Carissa?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Carissa,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Carissa. This one is up.
Oh, I see it, okay.
That one's up.
All right, our third presentation for this evening is the second presentation, and this is for our high school 5x5 block schedule with Carrie and Tim. You want to say anything first, Dan, or you all
What do you
set?
want? You want to?
I'll
Hold on one
Oh,
second.
yeah, give me a second.
Dan's going to speak first.
All right.
So just to set the stage and remind everyone, last month, Tim and Carrie and Ariel and Noah came to you to talk about the 5x5 block schedule. They did a nice presentation, talked about the pros, talked about the cons of the current 4-block schedule that we've had for the last 6, 7, 8 years. And then I had suggested to the board that we let them go and get community input, parent input, student input. So they spent the last month since our last meeting from February kind of collecting student and parent input, and they're going to report back to you on this tonight. Tim and Carrie, you are on.
Go ahead.
I'll stand by the nice
You
desk.
understand?
I'll stand over here.
So,
with the board's permission and direction, we did a lot of work between last time we met to now. So Ken, you can actually switch to the next slide if you want. Ken's multitasking, he's doing a great job. So we made a wonderful YouTube video. Hopefully many of you have seen it. It's got Tim and myself and Ariel and Noah in it talking about the 5x5 and what that proposal would mean for next year. So we, there's only 4 slides anyway, but.
It's only a 10-minute video, which was much shorter than our presentation to the board last month,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, we just wanted to condense it
Yeah.
and hit all the major points for the community.
So we had 295 views of that YouTube video. And also with that video, I sent out using Alma, and we put it on Thrillshare on our website. There was a Google questionnaire, so this is where the data is going to come from for the questionnaire. Out of the people who responded to our little questionnaire, our survey, there were 129 responders. Out of those responders, 37.2% were students, and then 62.8% were the parents or guardians.
Next slide.
Next, yep. There you go. So we wanted to have Zoom sessions for parents and guardians and students who had questions, and we did them at a varying time, but we did them all within a week and a half. So they were wonderful sessions where we actually found ourselves spending some time, the staff members, discussing more things, because we had one parent and guardian and one student at one point show up for one of those meetings. So every meeting had only one representation. But we can explain a little bit why we think that was. And the dates went out, like I said, in Thrillshare and Alma. They were on our school website. And then on Wednesday, March 10th, our student council actually met and watched the video and had more discussions about the schedule, and they answered the survey as well.
And I would say that the numbers that you're going to see reported here from the local community are consistent with the numbers that the students were voicing and their support in the most recent presentation to them.
Yep. So here was our data. We had a 72.9% in support of the schedule change. And we had 10.9% that had some questions. And then we had, that's yellow, I can't see that from here.
And about 16% that were opposed.
Yep.
So you can see from this sample size that we do have the overwhelming support of the community, parents and students. And I would also like to report that when we put out a subsequent poll here internally to our staff, we had 24 respondents. We only had one person who had raised any opposition to the proposal.
Okay. Next.
Questions?
Is that it?
Yep.
Oh,
That's it.
That's it. Just wanted to report out the data that we collected.
What was the reason for the one teacher? What was her, or
They weren't a
his?
teacher.
It wasn't a teacher.
It was a staff member.
Okay.
But there were concerns related to special ed and the challenges that special ed students, how are they going to remember the courses on the different days?
Okay.
It was a very simple question.
Thank you.
Are there any, you have anything else, you guys? You're all set, okay.
We're here for questions.
So are there any questions pertaining to the information that's been presented by Carrie or Tim tonight, by anybody within the cafeteria? Okay, I see none. So I'll go out to, where is she? There she is, Christy. Christy, do you have any questions pertaining to the, what information was just given to us?
No.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Glenn, do you have any questions pertaining to the information that was just given to us?
Not this one.
Okay, thank you very much. Dan, do you want to add anything further with this?
Just that I will be talking to you in a few minutes during my superintendent's report about taking action on this. So we'll do that under my report. Thank you, guys.
Carrie and Tim, thank you very much for getting that information and the slides and the data and survey stuff. Thank you very much. All right, that will end our presentation portion of the agenda, so I'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the approval of board meeting minutes. As most of you realize, we tabled our minutes for January 19th, 2021, so I'm gonna need a motion to bring them off the table.
I make a motion to take them off the table.
Okay, motion been made by Deb to take the minutes for January 19th, 2021 off the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Delaney. Is there any discussion pertaining to taking those minutes off the table? Okay, seeing none, I'll need a roll call vote, please.
Glenn Carter,
Yes.
Christy Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Abstain.
Cecile Cormier. Yes. Maureen Obi. Yes.
That motion passes, and the minutes are now off the table. I'll now take a motion to accept those minutes of January 19th, 2021.
I make the motion.
Motion's been made by Deb to accept the minutes of January 19th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Delaney. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Glenn.
Was anything more spoken of or corrected in the minutes besides just punctuation, grammar, and some technical stuff that we had suggested from the non-public from the beginning?
Yes, we actually added a lot more detail and to what was actually talked about in the meeting. We added that. We reviewed the video of the, sorry, I should say the YouTube video to make sure that we had the level of detail that we needed.
Okay. That's sufficient for me.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll need a roll call vote, please.
Glenn Carter,
I'll abstain.
Christy Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes?
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Abstain.
Cecile Cormier. Yes. Maureen Obi. Yes.
That motion passes. The minutes are accepted for January 19th. I now will be looking for a motion to accept the minutes of the board meeting for February 15th, 2021.
I make a motion to approve February 15th.
Motion been made by Deborah to accept and made a motion to accept the minutes of February 15th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Delaney. Are there any discussions pertaining to the minutes of February 15th, 2021? Seeing no discussion, I'll need a roll call vote, please.
Glenn Carter,
Yes.
Christy Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes?
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Abstain.
Cecile Cormier. Yes. Maureen Obi. Yes.
That motion passes and the minutes are accepted. That will close agenda item 6 on the board meeting. I'll now move on to agenda item 7, which is old business, and we will start with our business administrator for our financial and expenditure report to Jefferson.
Good evening, all. So I've uploaded the latest financial information to the board holder. Hopefully you all had a chance to review it. Since our last meeting, we've actually unencumbered $19,172. This is primarily due to us reviewing the usage rates on our special education service providers and adjusting the outstanding amounts on the purchase orders for the balance of the year to reflect this. So it's a slight reduction on those costs. Otherwise, there's been little change in our expenses and encumbrances so far since the last month. Our revenues have improved by $11,540 due to additional Medicaid reimbursements that we received and federal food service revenue. The Finance Committee discussed this past week the potential funding bills that are going through the legislature right now, and because of this, we will most likely want to have another budget work session to examine this information. As I'm sure many of you are well aware, also the federal government has passed another stimulus package This could have significant potential for us at the local level, but we'll have to wait until the funds have been processed with the New Hampshire Department of Education to see how much we will be getting and what the time frame of usage will be. They are continuing with what they've past practice. I would assume this next round will be called ESSER 3, as we already have ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. So, I'm open to any questions if anybody has any.
All right, thank you, Jefferson. I'll start on, in our Zoom, I'll start with you, Christy. Do you have any questions for Jefferson?
No, I do not.
Thank you, Christy. Glenn Carter, do you have any questions for Jefferson?
At this time, no.
Thank you. Now, within the cafeteria, or does anybody in the board have any questions for Jefferson? Seeing none, thank you, Jefferson. You're all set. With that, no questions by anybody. Thank you, Jefferson.
Thank you, good night.
Nice try.
All right, also under old business, I will be going to committee reports now. I will start with Deb for our financial report.
We had our finance meeting on the 11th. We reviewed our previous minutes, bank reconciliations. We reviewed some information regarding our budget with the numbers that Jefferson spoke about. We discussed the building project of the architect coming out to do some drawings and estimates for the middle school door to fix that problem that we have here. We had a joint finance committee meeting that went very well with the city group, and we discussed the different types of challenges that both sides are having in the school district as well as the city side. And we talked about increasing hourly wages for summer school teachers, and that will be discussed by Dan later. And that was it. And the next meeting is going to be on the, forgot to write it down, but I don't have it in my phone. My apologies. April 14th.
Are there any questions for Deb pertaining to the finance committee report? All right, thank you, Deb. Now we'll go over to Delaney. Delaney has an I-2 report for us.
Thank you. We had a fairly lengthy meeting on the 3rd of this month. Several of the topics we discussed have been or will be discussed tonight, including portrait of a graduate, 5x5 block schedule, planning for reopening full-time, and the annual report card. A few other items discussed, one being the dropout and absenteeism, and Carrie presented an autopsy report on the dropouts that we have been in review, as well as a plan for addressing future dropout potential intervention process. Carrie, would you mind just giving us maybe 2 minutes on your intervention process?
Sure. So one of the things we're going to be working on next year is really focusing on trying to help our incoming freshmen, because we have a large number of students right now that are still at freshman status. Because in order to be promoted to a sophomore, they have to pass English, math, science, and earn 2 credits in electives, which is really why we're excited about the schedule, because it would allow for remediation in the actual school day and help and support for the kids. So that's what we're really looking forward to be able to do in the school day, because I think sometimes with our freshmen, they struggle a little bit to try to find time to stay after school because of lack of transportation, or maybe they have jobs or they have to watch their siblings. So carving out time for them during the school day means we'll be able to keep them on grade level, because the data shows that once a student falls behind freshman year, their increase to not passing all their classes to graduate on time with their class greatly increases for them to continue to be on the dropout rate. So we talked quite a bit about that. Yep.
Thank you. We also talked about Title I program redesign, and the main gist there is taking intervention into the classroom rather than bringing students outside of the classroom for interventions there. And Dan will be having updates on that in some future full board meetings here. Strategic planning, we've moved to take strategic planning out of our regular meeting stream because the meetings are just going too long to try to address that there. So we will be having a special I-2 strategic planning meeting on the 31st of this month at 5:30 at the SAU. I certainly invite any school board members to join that would like to have input there. We'll be taking the list that we generated here the end of last year with our full board special meeting for strategic planning and working on paring that down and identifying some main points to try to work back into the full plan. And our next regular meeting will be on April 7th at 5:30 at the SAU. And Glenn, while I have you right here, if you're available, could you email me or get in touch with me? Because I understand that perhaps Wednesdays are not the best night for you to make an I-2 meeting.
Correct. So I'll be glad to email you.
Excellent, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And that's it.
Any questions, any questions for Delaney pertaining to his I-2 report? All right, thank you, Delaney. Are there any other committee reports to be brought forward before the board this evening? All right, there was going to be a scheduled liaison meeting due to some scheduling conflicts and our overabundance of meetings that we had last week. We had to delay it. I did reach out to Councilor Bunker today, who is the chair of the liaison on the city side of things. I am the chair for the school board portion of it. We all attended, both of us were on the Zoom meeting last week with the joint finance, and that's kind of the area. She just wants to make sure we keep the communications open between the city council and the schools with budget season going and be able to work through this budget season. But due to both of our schedules, we're going to push it out for a couple more weeks until we have another liaison meeting. I'm going out of state as of Monday, and I will not be back for a week. And then I got to kind of quarantine for a period of time because I'm going south for a week. So I told April that once I had come out with a date and we're able to set something up, that we'll set a liaison meeting up. But right now, everything's good. She feels comfortable with how everything went for our finance committee, joint finance with the city. And a lot of the members sit on both committees, so we'll set something up in the near future. All right, I believe that's all the reports for committees we have tonight, so I will close that portion of my agenda. And we will move on to agenda item 8. This is our new business, and we start with our update from Superintendent Legallo.
Okay, so we're gonna start with the 5x5 proposed schedule change at the high school. So I am recommending that you make this change tonight. It's a step in the right direction in terms of the redesign that we're working on at the high school. It's connected to our portrait of a graduate work. It's connected to the discussions we've been having in I-2. And it's connected to what Tim and Carrie presented to you obviously last month with Noah and with Ariel. And I wholeheartedly support it, and we'll turn it over to you to hopefully approve it.
All right, so we've had two presentations that have been brought forward before this board by both the principal and assistant principal, along with two staff members. And now it's being recommended by the superintendent that we move forward with this. Do we have a motion, or we can have the discussion?
Make a motion that we accept the 5x5 reschedule at the school.
I second.
Thank you, Glenn. Just let me get finished first, okay? Thank you. Christie, are you seconding that?
Yes.
Okay, Christie seconded it. Okay, now I'll open it for any discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion, I'll need a roll call vote on this.
Glenn Carter,
Yes.
Christy Martin, Tim
Yes.
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Abstain.
Cecile Cormier. Yes. Maureen Oby,
Yes.
The motion passes, and the high school will go to a 5-by-5 block schedule beginning for the school year 2021-2022.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Tim and Carrie and Noah and Ariel. Now the real work begins. Getting ready for next September. All right, excellent. Next up is the hybrid update. I have a lot to talk about tonight in terms of the hybrid update. Lots of information for the board to process. I tried to break it out a little bit for you so we could try to keep the discussion organized. We did send out a parent survey after the last school board meeting, when I had done my hybrid update. The board had requested we send a survey out to talk to our parents about their feelings regarding kids coming back more than 2 days a week. So that survey did get generated, it did get sent out. I actually heard from Christy today, this morning, around 10 o'clock, that she had never received the email as a parent with the survey. So we actually had Ken resend it today. We got about 57 more responses today. Jay has since texted me since this meeting started to say we got about 30 more responses tonight. So all told, as of this meeting, we had 695 responses, so there's about 30 more. I'm not sure why they weren't responding the first time around, but there might have been some kind of technical glitch that I'll have to look into. Anyways,
Just for a second.
oh,
Glenn, do you have a question? You have your hand up.
No, that's my hand.
Oh, never mind. That'll be removed. Disregard. Go ahead, Dan.
so 695 responses is a very good sample of responses. We have 935 students. So I just wanted to go through, and this data has been shared with you, and you've had the comments shared with you as well. It's all in the school board drive. So about 72% of parents favor us going to more in-person learning at this point. That would be with the parameters that we had set in the survey, which would be 3-foot distancing instead of 6-foot distancing. That would be masks on all the time in the classroom, except for mask breaks that would be scheduled. We talked in the survey, we had told them that lunches would have to be served in classrooms and hallways and in cafeterias or gymnasiums, basically all the available space that we have. Certainly, we could leverage outside when the weather gets nicer in the spring and summertime. And in the survey, we also said that the buses would have more than 26 students on it, because that's the limit that the bus company and I have agreed to at this point. And if we're gonna double the amount of kids in the building, we would obviously have to then double the amount of kids that are on the buses at this point. So that's the survey results that have come to you. There were some comments, many comments made about the detriment of the remote learning and how kids have suffered, students have suffered. And there were a lot of comments, or some comments about people being hesitant about going to 3 feet in terms of safety. So I don't need to read all the comments for you. We had about 8 pages or 9 pages worth of comments that the board was able to review on their own. So are there any questions for me regarding the survey? Delaney?
Could you address the one comment that stood out to me here? One parent asking about any spread of COVID within the schools that may or may not have happened over the course of the year so far.
We have only had one incident where we have had spread within the schools, and that was from one staff member to another, and that was our issue last week at the elementary school where we had to close for 2 days. We have not had any other documented evidence of any spread within the schools. Everything that has occurred this year with students or with staff has been documented to have occurred outside of the school setting. The good news regarding that situation last week is we did not get a third case, because if we had a third case related, DHHS, the health department would have declared that a cluster, and they would have shut us down until March 19th if we had a third case. So we were very fortunate at that point not to have that happen. And what that tells me is that the mitigation strategies that we have in place, the 6-foot distancing, the limited numbers of kids in classes, the cohorts, the keeping kids at the elementary, middle school contained in their one classroom and moving teachers around and not moving the kids around, all that has been very, very successful, because we wouldn't have gone from September to now with only one incidence of in-school spread.
And do you see any correlation between the percentage of people that support versus not support going back to full-time and the percentage of people that we currently have going fully remote?
We did not ask that question specifically, so it would be hard to speculate. Based off the comments that we saw, it looked like there were some people that would be concerned if we went to 4 days, but there were also people that said that they were fully remote, that they would consider bringing their kids in 4 days because of the consistency of the kids having that schedule and that not having to deal with some of the daycare issues. So, I mean, we can talk about what next steps should be. I wanted to kind of get all the information out there and talk to you about some recommendations. But certainly, one of the recommendations would be is, you know, if we decide at some point that we're going to expand in-person learning, there's information that we will need to go and collect once the board decides what they want to do. You know, my administration will need to go out and collect information and say, here's the plan, here's the timeline. We need to know from you as families what your choices are going to be regarding your own students so we can plan for that. It's hard to do that until we know what the timeline and the plan is going to be. So I'm hoping that I will have a recommendation for you tonight on that, and then I'm thinking that you guys will discuss that and tell me what you think.
You good? Go ahead, keep going.
I'm good.
You good, Laney?
Any other questions about the survey? Okay, the next piece of information that is important to this discussion is staff vaccinations. I'm very pleased to let you know that we were able to move staff vaccinations up. In fact, tomorrow we will have over 60 of our staff members vaccinated at Franklin Hospital. They will be given the Pfizer vaccine. We have 2 of our staff members that will be helping the hospital check staff members in. One of our school nurses will be assisting in administering the vaccine so that they can handle that many people. Next Tuesday, the 23rd, the remaining of our full-time staff will be vaccinated with the first dose. I do not have second dose dates yet, but we'll have a better idea of that after tomorrow because the hospital schedules that individually with each patient. So my understanding is it will be anywhere from 21 to 28 days after the first dose, which would mean hopefully that all staff would be vaccinated prior to April vacation. There will be another group on March 30th. That will be our substitute teachers, student teachers, and all the local daycares that we coordinated to help make sure that everybody in Franklin that wanted to get the vaccine would get the vaccine. So I think that's a big piece of information that you needed to know about, that we were able to make that happen. So I'll take questions on vaccination.
Deb's got one.
What about bus drivers?
Bus drivers are on that list, and we're gonna try and get them scheduled as well. They will probably be on the 30th.
Okay,
And then they will have their second dose within 21 to 28 days later.
okay,
Scheduled by the hospital, so.
okay. And what about coaches?
Coaches are on that list too. So I should say spring coaches, the ones that
Yeah.
would qualify.
Yeah, the ones that.
Which is the spring, the ones coming up, so.
Okay, are there any other questions for Dan on, before he moves on to his next thing, is there any further questions on vaccination?
Yeah, I just thought of something. On the news, we saw where there was a person that lived in New Hampshire, worked in Maine, couldn't get the vaccine in either place until it was a teacher that was not able to get it because of her age, because she didn't qualify in either one, because of the categories. Do we have that situation here?
All of our staff qualifies.
Okay.
Yep, they're all registered already, they're all ready to go starting tomorrow. Yeah. Anybody that, and I should clarify for everybody, anybody that wants to get the vaccine. Certainly, that's a choice that staff members make. So any staff member that wanted to get the vaccine is signed up to get the vaccine.
And a number of us already have gotten it on our own.
A lot of people have already gotten it on their own because of their own individual circumstances, so.
They're all,
My second one on Wednesday.
Yeah. The other piece of information to share with you is that Tim and I and Jay Trafton, our assistant principal at the middle school and our emergency management coordinator for the district, met with Chief Mike Voss last week on Tim's suggestion to talk to him about the community of Franklin, how Franklin's been handling the virus, thoughts and recommendations from him about moving forward in terms of what he's seeing in the city, in terms of cases, how they've been trending, what he's been seeing from his point of view. You know, he gets all the inside information about each case in Franklin. He's the one who gets the report. You know, any citizen in Franklin that has been reported positive, he gets that information and knows what's happening. We discussed with him at length different scenarios and different possibilities. It was a very good meeting that we had. Tim, I don't know if you want to share any details, but.
He, obviously, it's a board decision, but he realizes that with us reopening the schools, that it would have to be a 3-foot distance in order to bring the students back in. We can't bring a full amount of students back into the school at 6 feet, okay? We just don't have the space for it. So we had that discussion with Chief Voss, and he feels comfortable. I mean, the cases are trending downwards in the city of Franklin. There was a few cases where it kind of increased over a 1.5 week period of time, but those cases have now started to decline, and he thinks that some of it may have been backlogged testing. So, you know, he does feel, you know, it understands for us doing the 3 feet, and again, like he said, you know, if we make that decision, you know, it'll be on the parents' decision on whether they want to send their child back to school at a 3 foot and with fully masked, you know, but. You know, in order for us to open up the schools again, that's what we're going to have to do. And he understands it, and he doesn't see an issue with it right now, as long as we keep all the protocols and safety protocols and cleaning protocols into play and everything like that. And on top of that, I was actually on a meeting also. I did a Zoom meeting with about 1,500 other educators and school board members and everything with the CDC. This was about 3 weeks ago. Again, they're not ruling either way. They're saying, you know, schools can reopen from either 3 foot or 6 foot social distancing, depending on space available for you in your schools, but they won't commit to either way of it. So again, they're kind of downshifting it to your local school boards. So that question was asked numerous times to kind of give clarification, but obviously CDC won't. And they're still sticking with the 3 to 6 foot distancing and again, downshifting it to the local authority and local school boards. DHHS is saying the same thing, 3 to 6 foot. It's all gonna depend on how the board is, okay? Deb?
What about masks for kids? I mean, what's their recommendations there? Because we all know kids are not, they're gonna be very difficult for them to sit all day long masked up.
And again, CDC saying that they're recommending mask usage. They're recommending for even the kids that, you know, masks be worn in the schools. So they haven't gone away from that portion of it. But again, it's all a local decision on what we want to do. Same thing when we met with Mike Foss, you know, I mean, we got to look at that fact. I think, you know, we also need to look at a later, if we're going to open back up, I think we need to do it at a later time. Because there's some, and Dan will talk about, there's some time period of getting prepared for this. And obviously in that time period, we also are going to start getting into our spring weather where we can do outside education with our kids. Okay, we can open up our windows and just a lot more things, and Dan will talk about that. You know, so, but they're recommending, you know, as long as they're in the classroom, of wearing masks.
Did he mention anything about transient cases here in town?
They're going down.
Oh, so we've had some transient.
Well, I mean, we've had COVID cases in the city of Franklin.
Well, yeah, I know, but what about the new breed, the transient one?
He really didn't get into the transient part of
They
it.
would still be reported, so.
Right.
Right.
I mean, at one time, we were up over 400 cases in the city, but we're only at about 11 active cases right now in the city is what's being reported out.
Okay, so we don't have a new version?
No. No, no, we're not seeing any, he hasn't seen any of that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Maureen?
I think it's March 26th, and the mandate for mask wearing might end should our governor decide to end that particular executive order. How is that going to impact our schools?
So whether or not we wear masks in schools depended on the school board. It's your school to determine how you're gonna handle that. You know, to try and get back on track a little bit. You know, there's, getting back to the 3-foot distancing, just to clarify a little bit. We have a few classes in the district that we're not positive yet we could fit everybody in. It depends on how many families say, yes, I want my kids to come back that 4 days a week. That 3rd grade situation we talked about last month when you gave me the permission to hire a 3rd grade teacher is an example of that. If we had all of our 3rd grade kids come back, if we did this, without that teacher, we're not able to have all the kids come back at 3-foot distancing. We would have to relocate and have to have that 4th extra teacher that you gave me permission to hire. So I just want to put that out there that, you know, the first step to doing anything would be to reach out to the families and say, we anticipate doing X. And if we do this, we need to know from you whether or not you would be sending your child back into school in person or whether you would be keeping your child home fully remote. Because we still have a commitment we need to make to all the remote kids. We still, at this point, have over 25% of our kids fully remote. And remember, our teachers are teaching simultaneously. They're teaching kids in person and remotely at the same time, especially at the middle and high school. Elementary school is doing a little combination of both. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So I would need time to work with my principals and their faculties to say, what's the best way to address this if we're going to bring more kids into the classroom? And we have to look at that model and see how we can handle that. So that's another factor too. So with all that said, I think we should be, you know, continuing to follow the trends. I mean, if you look, I mean, we had a situation last week, we had to close the school for 2 days. And we still have situations where we have staff or students that have to quarantine. So I do not want to send a message to anyone that like, you know, this is over or that we're past the pandemic, because we're not. But we do have some things heading in the right direction here, so it's time for us to have this discussion. Delaney.
Where we're still at the state level around 250 new cases a day, which is, I want to say, is about where we're at in beginning of November, where we weren't even thinking about, you know, going back full time. I definitely don't think it's time yet, but I don't think I could vote to go back to full time without seeing a plan from the administration demonstrating that we could handle both full-time students and the still remote students at the same time. So I'd recommend starting to work on that plan so that we have a plan, you know, well thought out before we decide to implement it.
Conversely, I cannot come up with a plan with all the information I need without the board having some kind of goal in mind. So for instance, what I'm thinking, and I'll recommend it right now to you to consider, and I don't think it's something you need to vote on, because I'm going to put out there that I believe we should be looking at after April vacation. If we're going to consider bringing kids 4 days a week, that target date should be after April vacation. That May, I don't remember what that Tuesday date is. May 2nd or May 3rd.
May 4th.
May 4th is the
We have
Tuesday.
some raised hands.
Okay? Can I finish before we
I'm
do
sorry.
raised hands?
I just want.
So if we're going to be looking to do something, I would project it out to say that we're targeting May 4th as the potential date. Potential is the key word. because this thing's been changing every 2 weeks, the whole year. You know, we've all seen that. But that would give us something then to go on to let our community know that if things trend the right way, vaccinations are in place for our staff that wanted it. Summer, spring weather's in place so we can leverage the outside areas. We would then say to our community, if we were going to do this with the parameters that we talked about, 3-foot distancing, masks on, you know, eating lunches at all the open spaces that we needed, buses probably more than 26, would you or would you not be sending your kids to school? And we would contact all 935 students in the district. So we could put a plan together and said to you in April, at our April meeting, here's how many kids would be coming back. We can fit them all in all the rooms with these parameters that we put in place. And this is how we would deal with the remote kids. That's kind of what I'm envisioning.
Dwayne, can we hold on to your question for a second so I can get the ones online because they've been waiting? Christy, you have a question?
Yes, I don't think we've talked about this yet, and if we have, forgive me, I missed it. If there is an outbreak after we should go back to 4 days a week, what is the protocol going to be for that?
The protocol in terms of having an issue would be the same protocols we have in place now. So if we have an issue, then we either close down the school that has the issue, we quarantine the students and the staff members that need to be quarantined. So those procedures are always the same. You just now have more people impacted, and that's something that the board needs to consider. So instead of having 10 kids in a class right now that may be impacted, you might have 15 to 17 kids in a class that are impacted. And parents would need to know that as well. That if we go and do this and we have cases that get reported, you might have more close contacts and more kids that then have to quarantine. If we had some type of a cluster where you had 3 cases that were related, you would be looking at closing your schools down for 2 weeks and being fully remote. That's what DHHS would make you do. That's what would happen.
Does that answer your question, Christy?
Yeah, and that was actually a concern. I was worried. What my concern is we're gonna go back in and right off the bat, we're gonna have a cluster and we're gonna have to go fully remote for 2 weeks. That's my biggest concern. I'm not opposed to bringing kids back 4 days a week. I think it's in the kids' best interest, but I am concerned of having an outbreak.
Thank you, Christy. Glenn, do you have a question?
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, Dan, please correct me. You're looking for us to give you the authority to do a survey of much what you've already been doing and changing the time and also the double 5 periods. Is that correct?
What I'm asking you to do is to authorize me to point to a date in the future after April vacation, which I'm suggesting is May 4th, to say that the board is considering reopening 4 days a week for all students that want to come in person, May 4th. In order for the board to do that, the administration needs to know if your child would be coming or not. So we can plan for the remote students as well as the kids that would be in person. So that the principals then would contact every student in their school, every family, and say, based on these parameters, things are trending this way, would you or would you not send your student to school? Or would you keep them, or would you change them to fully remote? Because there would be no hybrid at that point. The only option would be you're fully remote or you're 4 days a week. It wouldn't make sense to come in 2 days a week because you're already 3 feet apart. So that's the options that we're asking parents to make a choice of, so that I can come back to the board at the April meeting and say, here's what 935 parents told us about the possibility of opening up on May 4th. And we know at that point the staff that wanted the vaccinations would have vaccinations, which was one of the parameters we had in our original plan from the summer. But certainly the issue's not gone because the students haven't been vaccinated yet. That's why the parents still need to have that ability to do what they think is right for their own student, their own child.
Are you all set, Glenn?
I have a question.
Hold on, Paul, I just want to make sure Glenn's all set. Glenn, are you all set?
Yes, I guess I'm just concerned from a parent's perspective. I know that many of the parents want it back, but as I read through that survey, a lot of them were very, very concerned that they just got into their work schedules, they just got back, they just figured out babysitters and everything like that. And I'm 100% get those kids back 5 days a week, 4 days a week, and without masks. But at the same time, when parents are struggling as it is, just to put the roof over the head and food on the table to make sure those kids are there, have we considered that aspect as well when we go through this as a school board? Because yes, we want those kids to be back, but we're talking about what, 8 weeks from May?
7.5 weeks. Yep.
And then we can look at fully opening in September with hopefully no restrictions, correct?
That's the hope.
All right, I mean, I'm all for, if we were to vote right now to say open up the schools, I'm all for that right now. I'm just concerned about our parents because they're the ones that are also putting the bill for it. So I'm concerned about them, and we need to take them into consideration also.
Thank you, Glenn. Paul?
So going from May 4th, I say we maintain the status quo, finish out the year. It's becoming way too complicated, and we gotta contact 995 parents individually and get their approvals. As much as many parents want to open the school, what I'm hearing is, or what I'm feeling is that we continue as is and look at it over the summer and go to fully open, hopefully in September.
Thank you, Paul. Delaney, you got another question?
Yeah, I think, a May 4th target at least gives us time to bear witness on some of the other districts that are going to be going back more full-time before us. Because if problems are going to happen, they're going to happen someplace else first, and sooner rather than later. So that gives us some leeway. And my other thought is with things, like Dan said, things change every 2 weeks. What kind of leeway or are you going to expect from parents? Like, when are you going to survey them about going back May 4th? Because if you survey them next week, that's still like a month and a half from May 4th, and things could change drastically from now to then.
And that's the difficult thing about this, is that, is we can make the greatest plans in the world, and you could have cases and we have to call school off. I mean, the other piece about the vaccinations that I didn't mention, well, our vaccinations are on Tuesday. And if we have a lot of staff on that second dose that get ill because of it, because we've heard a lot about second dose, people spiking fevers and stuff, and Pfizer's supposed to be better than Moderna, so I'm hoping that because we're getting Pfizer, we won't. But it's quite likely that with 65 people getting vaccinated on the second dose, if they do it on the second day, we might have to go remote for a couple of Wednesdays because we have too many staff that, for whatever reason, aren't able to come into the building. If they have a fever, they can't be here. So that's just an example of you really can't predict. I mean, I wouldn't have predicted that the elementary school would close for 2 days. I wouldn't have predicted that I have another staff member that has to quarantine for 2 weeks because of something that happened today. But something happened today that I have another staff member that has to quarantine for 2 weeks. So we can lay out the best of plans that you want to, but nobody in this situation can hold us to really anything because we cannot predict what's going to happen. I can tell you what's happening at local districts around us, and I will also remember you have a survey from parents that 73% of them are saying that they want to try and do something. That doesn't mean we should do something. That just tells me that in terms of work schedules, that they're willing to readjust their work schedules to make this happen, back to Glenn's point. Because they wouldn't have said that if they weren't. They wouldn't have said it, in terms of being able to have their kids come back.
Christy?
I just wanted to say something to Paul about what he had just said. And as much as I can appreciate us staying on the schedule that we're on for the students and for the teachers, I think it's in the best interest of the students to get back into the classroom as much I just know that as much as it would seem to be just easier to not send out 925 emails or 925 surveys again, and it would be easier to just stay on task like we are, it is just best for the children to be in the classroom.
Thank you, Christy. All right, Deb?
With, Dan, you're talking vacation, our next meeting is not until April 19th.
Right.
That's 1 week prior to school vacation. You may also have staff that may be traveling during that time. That could pose a problem as far as quarantining when they return, if they're going out of state for, an
Most
expense.
will be 2 weeks past the vaccination, so they won't have to quarantine.
They won't have to?
And because of the quarantining, I also have the ability to name them essential personnel if I need to. I've resisted that to this point, but we could do that if we needed to. I don't think we should, but I could.
So waiting until the next board meeting, is that going to give you enough time, 1 week before vacation, to bring everybody back the week after vacation? With not having a specific return plan of this is the criteria like we had for our emergency plan, I'm assuming that you would have a documentation similar to that, or a return with the protocols and.
You can push it back another week, but the thought process is more on what Paul's saying, is the more you push it back, you get to that point of where you're doing this with not a lot of payback at the end.
No, I'm not saying pushing it back. I'm saying having a board meeting earlier rather than later in order to give yourself more time.
Oh, we could
Rather than our
definitely do
board
that.
meeting on the 19th, have it on the 12th.
I'm gonna suggest a board meeting for the 14th about budget, so we could do one on the 14th, or we could do one even earlier than that.
Because that would be my concern, is you and the administration not having time in advance before vacation to put something into place for immediately after vacation.
I would not be opposed to having a meeting earlier, so that we can let families and staff know what we're gonna do next.
And then the next question is, between now and that time frame, is there enough time to do your surveys or to get your input from your parents?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah, there's enough time for us to get the information that we need.
Are there any other questions for the superintendent? Okay, I see, so Glenn, I'm gonna let you go first, because Christy's already asked a couple, so let me have you go first.
Would it be possible, if we're going to have that board meeting on the 12th, to move specifically the discussion and the votes as to what we do about reopening the school based on the information to one of the very first items on the agenda, and keep the budget discussion to the end?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
So really what I need, go ahead, Tim.
Christy?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Christy.
I just wanted to make a comment about the email for the survey. If we could send it out more than once, that would probably be a good idea, considering I never saw the parent survey in my email, in my junk email, in my personal email. I didn't see it at all. So if we could send it out more than once, maybe
Right.
once 1 week and once another week, then maybe we could get a better response from the parents of the community.
Just to clarify, this will not be a survey this time around. I will be sending a letter out tomorrow detailing what comes out of this meeting to all of our parents, and then we will be contacting, if you give us the approval tonight, we will be personally contacting every parent in the district with, telling them this information and collecting what we need from them. So it won't be a survey like we've done before.
All right, so we'll take it. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Cecile.
Okay, so my understanding is that you want to find out whether or not the parents want to have their children go full-time. And and you're not going to be making any draft proposal to how to implement the full 4 days until you get an answer from the parents? Is that?
What we've discussed so far is this, that we would be thinking about bringing students back 4 days a week. So we would have either remote students, and we would have 4-day-a-week students. Okay? We would still run the shortened day, so we'd still have the extra hour at the end of the day to help with the remote kids. We would still have the Mondays where everybody's fully remote, so all those kids would still interact, and teachers would have that first day of the week to get everybody off to a good start for the week. We would have cleaning the buildings every week, which is what we've been doing on Mondays, the deep cleaning and all that. We know that so far, unless the board changes the parameters we put out with the survey were 3-foot distancing instead of 6 foot. Because we went to 3 foot, we would have to have masks on all the time except for mask breaks. Right now it's 6 feet, and when they're at the desk, they can take their masks off because they're 6 feet apart. But when we push them to 3 feet, if that's what we do, they have to have the mask on then, till they have a mask break. For lunches, because they're at 6 feet right now, they're in the classroom, because they can take a mask off and eat their lunch in the classroom. As soon as you move them to 3 feet, they can't eat in the classroom, everybody, the whole class can't eat because they're too close together. So you either have to have half the kids come out to either eat in the hallways or eat in the cafeteria or the gymnasium or outside if it's nice out. So the other kids are then 6 feet apart and can take their masks off. Okay? Buses right now are 26 kids or less. That's what we've set the standard at because we have cohorts. As soon as you double the amount of kids that come into the school, theoretically, you're going to double the amount of kids that are on the buses. So parents need to know that. They need to know that masks are going to be on, 3-foot distancing now instead of 6, lunch is being served throughout the building, and buses, if you're a bus student, means there's going to be more kids on the bus. Those are all factors parents should be aware of when they decide, are these the conditions I want my student to come to school in? And if I'm comfortable doing that, I'll say, yes, my kid's coming for 4 days a week. And if I say no, then I'm going to keep my kid fully remote now. But unless we tell them when this is going to happen, unless we tell them this is the parameters we're working under, they don't know what they're signing up for. They need to know what they're signing up for. And I need the board to authorize me to tell them what they're signing up for. Does that help?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
Delaney?
Are you still going to be working on a shortened school day?
Yes. Because we will still have remote kids that we have to deal with. Teachers will still be planning for both, at least theoretically, they're still, unless we figure out another way, which I don't think we will because we're a small district. You know, we're not going to hire new teachers to do remote kids for 6 weeks or 7 weeks.
Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, I'm going to make a motion that we authorize the superintendent to move forward with a possible reopening plan of May 4th. Parents will be notified immediately by the superintendent or his administration, and that the changes of this will be 3-foot spacing within the schools for all students, and that mask mandates will be mandatory at all during the full period of the day. Okay, motion's been made, seconded by Cecile. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I will need a roll call vote.
Glenn Carter,
Yes.
Christy Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
No.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
and Maureen O'Wade.
Yes.
That motion passes, and the superintendent has the authority to start moving forward with the reopening plan.
Okay, we will get that rolling. We've been working on it all along, so we'll keep rolling down that road. Thank you very much. Did we want to schedule that meeting while we're talking about it right now?
Yes, if we could, Dan.
14?
I was asking, or considering, was going to ask you to schedule that meeting on the 14th, which is a Wednesday. Nothing special about that day. We could do it anytime that week, but,
It's not a good day for Glenn.
Glenn's not a good day on Wednesday.
so we could look to Tuesday or Monday.
Tuesday, is that the 13th? 13th, Glenn, does that work for you to have a update, special board meeting to get an update from the superintendent for the reopening plan?
I apologize, but Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays are the best days for me, so I'm really sorry about that.
Okay, so
Monday the 12th.
Monday the 12th? No, Deb's got a board meeting, how about Thursday?
Thursday.
It's fine.
Did
Whatever
you say
works for you.
Thursday's okay, Glenn?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so if we did Thursday the 15th,
Yeah, if that's what you need, I can be there for the beginning of it, absolutely.
is there any objection by anybody on the board if we did a,
And what's our regular meeting? Is it the next Monday?
yeah?
A few days?
Can we just do our regular meeting?
We can, we just need to make a motion to change it, because it's already set in the calendar. So if we want to change our school board meeting to the 15th, is that what it is, Dan, the 15th, the 15th?
Yep.
I don't have objections to it, but policy-wise, you have to make a motion for it.
So would this be a regular meeting, is that what you're saying?
Well, right now, it's just a special meeting, but unless someone wants to change the meeting date,
I'll make
and
a
it has to be
motion
done by a motion.
I'll make a motion to change our regular April board meeting from the 19th to the 15th.
I second
Okay, motion's been made to change our school board meeting, that was scheduled for April 19th, and now is being motioned to change it to April 15th at 6 PM still, Deb?
Yes?
At 6 PM still. That was seconded by Glenn. Do I have any discussion?
And we're looking to do budget that night as well?
I'd do both.
Yeah,
You'll just put it on the agenda.
we'll make it a short agenda.
Are we still meeting the 19th?
No. We would just meet on the 15th now,
Regular school board meeting on the 15th
yes,
with budget.
with budget. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing no other discussion, I'll need a roll call vote on this motion.
Glenn Carter,
it. Yes,
Christy Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Johnson,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier.
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
All right, normally, because what's today's date? Today's the 15th, so 30 days away. We're gonna be giving our staff enough to do. So I'm not gonna worry about staff reports. I'm gonna keep the agenda to the reopening plan and budget. Okay, unless something other drastic that the superintendent or I see.
And non-public.
In a non-public. Yeah, we'll have to have a non-public, so I'll keep them down to a minimum. Administration, Dan, they won't need to do any reports for that meeting.
Guys, hear that? Did you hear that good news?
That way they would keep it to a minimum. All right? All right, so moving along, Dan, in your report, you're at
Well,
the,
now you need to authorize me to, you never
what do
finished.
you want?
You never finished authorizing me to propose May 4th as the potential date.
Oh, we didn't take the roll call
You
vote?
never,
Yes, we did.
yes, we did.
You did? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good. Sorry, I missed that part. We're good. Moving on, I promise the rest of this is a lot easier. Next one's a piece of cake. Franklin Animal Shelter has reached out to us for their 5K annual race on May 30th. They've asked for us to open up the Paul Smith School for bathrooms. This is the first request that's for an outside group to open our building since the pandemic started. So I fully support doing this, but wanted the board to approve it since it was an outside agency and we're in a pandemic. But I do approve and would ask you to approve that.
I have
Move
a,
that we open the Paul Smith School to the animal shelter on May 30th.
okay, motion's been made to open up the Paul Smith School for the Franklin Animal Shelter on May 30th. Who seconded? Cecile? Okay, is there any discussion?
Custodial?
That's gonna be my question.
Yep, we will have a
Deep
custodian.
cleaning's gonna have to be done if they're using
Just,
just that
they're
area?
gonna come in the back side door. There's a bathroom right by the entrance. We'll block off the hallway, so they basically will go in about 6 feet of the building.
The bathroom is right there on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Yeah, so there'd be very little cleaning to do.
And then Monday would still be a remote day anyway?
Monday's remote as well, yeah.
Deep cleaning
Well,
anyway?
No,
at
it's
that,
holiday.
well, yeah, Monday's a holiday that week, I think.
Yes, that's.
Yeah,
Memorial
right,
Day.
isn't that the holiday?
Yeah.
Monday?
Monday's the 31st, is Memorial Day.
Oh, traditional.
Yeah, so.
But we will make sure that that's clean. Like I said, the area that they use, there's a door right there, the bathroom is right there. So we'll block the rest of it off.
You answered my question.
All right.
Thanks, Deb. See, it's my question, you got both questions. Christie, you had your hand up, was your question answered?
Yeah, my question was answered, thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing no other discussion, if I could have a roll call vote, please.
Glenn Carter,
Yes.
Christie Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. I'd like to nominate the spring sports coaches, as we discussed earlier. I can read them off if you need me to. You all had, everybody's good. The middle school coaches for spring and the high school coaches for spring.
Should we have the motion separate, please, one for each?
Yep, go ahead. We'll do the middle school motion first, please. So does anybody want to make the motion to accept, I'll make it for you guys, I'll do it. I make the motion that we accept the spring 2021 coaching staff for the Franklin Middle School has been presented to this board by Principal Darsney,
Second.
second by Deb. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, if I could have a roll call vote.
Glenn Carter,
Yes.
Christie Martin,
Christie?
Christie. Oh, I think she.
She's frozen.
Yes. I was having technical issues.
It's okay, thank you, Christie.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to I just did middle school, I can do high school.
Oh, okay, good.
I'll make the,
Sorry.
I'll make the motion
Collecting
to
parent info.
accept the spring 2021 coaches has been presented to the board by Principal Charette for the Franklin High School.
I second it.
Second by Glenn. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll need a roll call vote, please.
Glenn Carter,
Yes.
Christie Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Abstain.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, Dan, we're at spring sports.
All right, spring sports protocols. I have Danny Sylvester with us tonight. Thank you, Danny, for being here to talk about the spring sports protocols.
What's going on? Behind us?
On that side of the desk. Perfect, cool.
All right, thanks for having me again, 3 times, 3rd season, here we go again. But that's good news, I think, that I'm standing up here for a 3rd season, so we've gotten through the first 2. As far as summary for winter, we had a couple of hiccups, but pretty much everybody did. But as far as playoffs for the NHIA and the varsity level, there were no forfeits because of cases at any schools. champions were crowned right through the finals. So things ended up pretty well. So I think things are the way we think they are out there. It is getting better, turning the corner type of thing. So let's hope being outside will mean even better things for us. So again, more of the same. This is just the third protocol spreadsheet that I've done for you guys. Most of it is the same as it's been. In general, regional scheduling, we're going to do that again. It's worked out very well for us. I'm going to stay within the Lakes region for both high school and middle school. So for example, if we play Newfound Regional High School on a Monday and a Wednesday for baseball and softball games for varsity level, we're also playing middle school against Newfound that particular week on like a Tuesday and a Thursday, separate days. Condensed game schedules, again, so for example, instead of 16 games we normally play in the spring for varsity teams, we're playing 12. No weekend activity again. We're staying away from weekend activity except for track and field. Track and field, it's very popular that meets are held on Saturdays because that's when schools can host. They have the most time and the most people that can help. So we do have 3 Saturday meets out of 8 total. But other than that, there is no practices on weekends for any schools, any teams at the middle school or high school. On average, that means our teams will have 2 games per week, 2 practices per week. So again, we're limiting that even. So they're going to have to choose a day during the week that they don't have an activity. Very similar to basketball. Lastly, no April vacation activity at all. There's no games scheduled, there's no track meets. No practices will be scheduled over April vacation. So we'll keep people out of the buildings and off the fields for that particular week. Everybody's free and clear that week. So other than that, when you look at this, I did try to just highlight the areas that we really need to concentrate on without going through the whole document, which is pretty busy. The first one is masks while outdoors. We're not going to drop our guard. We're still going to agree as athletic directors in all the divisions. I'm pretty sure we haven't made those decisions yet completely, but I'm sure that's where everybody's going because there's already some data that's come in from last summer where we shut everything down, but the AAU teams all played, but they were masked up. Basically, in general, when you can't social distance on a baseball field or a softball field, you should be wearing that mask. So especially for the catcher, the umpire standing behind that catcher, and the batter that's in the box will all be masked up. So again, we're going to be pretty strict when it comes to that. Locker rooms, again, we're going to stay out of the locker rooms completely. I'll talk a little bit more about that next when we talk about restrooms. So visiting teams coming in, they're going to know ahead of time that we do not offer locker room use at all. So that does bring up an issue, a little bit more complicated for spring sports because we're spread out throughout the city with our fields, whereas basketball, we play all our games, middle school and high school, right at the Franklin Middle School Gymnasium. Dan and I sat down and it was like just a little bit more complicated to talk about restroom use, spectator policy, which we'll talk about in a sec also, because we play our varsity softball games at a city park, our most popular city park, which is Odell Park. It's wide open. Whatever bathroom facilities they have on a year-to-year basis is what our people use down there. So that will continue. Our middle school softball team plays at Danielle Park, again, a city park. They have bathroom facilities there as well. So there will be restrooms. The issue comes here at the high school. We normally let people in this back door and they come down here and use our bathrooms. We don't want to do that. We don't want to let people in the building. We thought about opening up the locker rooms just for bathroom use only, and again, that just didn't work for us. The custodians have not been used to disinfecting or cleaning locker rooms after sports games or practices, so we're trying to stick to that strategy. So we decided it would be best to bring in a couple of porta potties like we do in the fall. Got a really good deal through Byron Septic. They treated us very well. 2 porta potties, one will be handicap accessible for like $500 for the 2+ months that we need them. So it was a no-brainer for us to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And they'll be located right out here by the baseball diamond. That will be used for high school varsity baseball games and middle school baseball games. We will, because of the lack of a JV team, again for baseball, be able to allow our middle school team to come down here and use this field rather than use Rowell School. So that should work. So there's the restroom piece. Event travel, again, if we stick to our guns with the 20, right around the 26 maximum per bus. In the old days with JV teams, B teams for middle school, that would be a huge issue, but we don't really have to worry about large numbers right now. We don't have a huge amount of participation at the two schools with sports, so we don't really have a lot of JV teams, and we haven't had B teams for a while now. So we can do this. In other words, one varsity team will go to Winnisquam and play, like varsity baseball. They will send their varsity softball team here to play, and I host them. There are a couple of days where we'll have to double up on a bus, because we do have to send both teams over to a school. So we will, actually not double up on the bus, my bad wording. We will use 2 buses for those particular days, but there's not very many of them. There's very few. There might be 3 or 4, and that's it. Otherwise, it'll be 1 bus going, 1 bus coming. And that's both for middle school and high school. So again, pretty well the same as far as that protocol goes for busing. Last thing to talk about, again, which is normally the biggest issue, I know it was for basketball. The parents got through it, they were fine. A couple of complaints at first. I live streamed every single game, every single middle school home game, and every single JV and varsity basketball game, girls and boys. Again, appreciate Ken's help getting me set up on that YouTube channel for that. So spectator policy, a little different. We're outside, and again, as I mentioned before, we're at public parks. Can't control it. It's just, there's no way that we're gonna be able to manage, especially if I'm at more than one location, managing games. So at this point in time, Dan and I talked about the fact that it is outdoors. Things are looking up. It's a lot, the people can social distance better, that we would let people come to the spring games. No family member only policy. If students wanna come, they can come. Obviously, it would be my job still to manage and have the strategy and the policy that you still have to wear masks and you still have to socially distance. So I'll have my signs, I'll be out there scoping things out, so on and so forth. So that's the biggest change from fall, where we had family members only, and then winter was no spectators because it was inside. The only other thing to carve out here is we do have a unified volleyball program, which again is played inside at the middle school gymnasium. Not a whole lot of people go to those games anyway, but I certainly would have, again, mandatory mask wearing for all players, officials, scorekeepers, pretty much the same spectator policy and mask wearing and social distancing policies I had for basketball, because we are inside. And then stick to a family-only spectator policy for unified volleyball. But outside, open it up to fans. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Did I miss anything? I think that was it that we talked about.
Thank you.
Yep. So again, pretty much the same. We'll deal with the restrooms. We got the porta potties down here. The biggest thing, I think, again, for you guys to focus on is the spectator policy for spring, being that we're going to open it up, hopefully. That's my recommendation, too. Yep.
To allow for the spectators to attend the games?
Yeah, per usual, in other words, the normal. Yeah. Again, one of the issues is, again, managing it. We really can't control who comes and goes to Odell Park and Daniel Park. And even down here, even though it's not a city park, we have 2 really huge entrances, and people are gonna get in anyway. So, any questions?
Christine, go ahead.
Yep.
Underneath the captures, are they gonna have to still wear a mask, even the mask that they're already wearing?
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions for Danny? All right, so you're gonna need a motion, you want the spectator,
I move to approve whatever's on this list.
accept the sports protocols.
Thank you, sir.
Could you put it there as accept the sports protocols, please?
To accept sports protocols.
Thank you. All right, so motion's been made by Paul to accept the sports protocol. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Delaney. Is there any further discussion? Okay, see no further discussion. Before roll call vote, Kathy, just so you know, Glenn Carter signed off at 8:05, so he's no longer with us. But even with him signing off, we still have a quorum, so we can do a roll call vote now.
Christy Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Curry,
Yes.
Paul Gusett,
Yes.
Sid Cormier,
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Spring protocol as presented is accepted.
Thank you guys very much, appreciate it.
Thank you, Danny.
Go tornadoes.
Thanks, Dan.
Go Hurricanes.
Go Hurricane.
All right, next up, Brenda has been waiting very patiently
Oh, yes.
to talk about her federal food service review and how wonderful we did.
And Jefferson's gonna step.
Okay, no, you do gotta come down here. Sorry, Brenda. I know most times I let you sit there. You can even stand there and just look over at me if you want.
I
Take care
tried.
of our viewing public.
I'm camera shy.
That's all right.
Okay, so the state was required to do a review on all food service directors nationwide. And I was selected to have mine on March 4th. And they request certain information from us in advance to be able to go over it. They went through all of our production sheets, which is what went out, what was returned, how many we served, how many came back. They also go through all of our accounting, our tally sheets, which means like at Paul Smith, every homeroom has a tally sheet. So 17 per meal per day. They go through to make sure that when I do my monthly claim, that we're not overclaiming, that those tally sheets equal out to what I claimed ate for free meals. Let's see, they went through my menus to make sure that I had all of the correct components that we were serving, that we met the federal guidelines, that we did offer the fruit and the vegetables and the 2 ounces of protein in the whole grains. Let's see, they talked about, they wanted to know how did we reach the community, how did we reach the public? So I know you've all seen my Facebook posts because I'm on Franklin's Talking, getting it out there to our parents and letting them know what time the buses are leaving. With the support of the school board and Dan, I believe it's been very successful. The buses are still running every morning at 6:30. They're coming back every day. Certain buses are empty, certain buses not so empty, but the window is doing extremely well. Parents are coming to the window, getting their food for their children that are remote at home. So the window's doing I can't even tell you how well the window does. So that's it. I think Jefferson had to be at the closing of the review, being the business administrator. When they close down the review, they request that the BA be there. So I'll let him
Jefferson,
finish
how'd you
it.
do?
So Brenda did wonderfully. The nice thing about the reviews this time around, I've been doing those myself many years ago when I worked at Interlakes, because we had a different setup. I was responsible for that. But the nice thing about this was like it's a desk review, so they didn't actually have to come physically on site, and that tends to be a much more arduous process. This is more of a administrative technical assistance review. And as Brenda said, she was able to provide a lot of the information by emailing that to the representative at the New Hampshire DOE, Alexis Dwyer, and we had our Zoom meeting. A lot of the questionnaire related to, she sent out the questionnaire ahead of time, obviously, where the information would be related to us, our food service program, and some of the questions were actually pandemic specific, like what kind of educational model were we in the school, whether it was 100% remote, hybrid, or all in school. So once they had that established, then how are we providing meals to everybody? Which food program were we on? Were we using the National School Lunch Program or the other one that we use we are using is called the Seamless Summer Option, and that's what is allowing us to provide meals to every child in the community for free, regardless of ability to pay. Alexis Dwyer was very complimentary with the information that was provided, and I think, like Brenda spoke to, the communication to the community as to what we were doing, the methods we were using, and things of that nature, I think is what precipitated that letter that we received from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Obviously, when you have a federal agency recognize little old Franklin School District in New Hampshire for their food service program or anything of that nature, should give kudos to Brenda and the job that she has done since the start of the pandemic and shaping the food service program to be able to help as many people in the community and as many children in the community. And the nice thing is, we've received a waiver that at least allow us to continue that pretty seamlessly until the end of September. So it was a very good process, and I'm very proud of Brenda and her team for what they've been able to do.
Thank you, Jefferson. Are there any questions for Brenda at all? I can tell you that Brenda has a very large following on social media. Brenda is on every site there possibly is on the Franklin website, on Franklin social media. But I think that's a positive thing. That's never a negative thing when it's like this, because Brenda will be on there on a Sunday night. I can tell you for a fact because it pops up on my computer. She'll be on there on a Sunday night and saying, okay, this is what's going on, or if there's going to be double lunch deliveries or whatever it may be. Brenda is by far never short on information to our parents in this community. And I'm sure Jewel can tell you, because Jewel kind of watches over the social media as much as I do, to kind of guide things. So I can tell you that she has a huge following on social media, and the amount of work that you do does not go unnoticed by this community, by the amount of comments that are always written for you for what you do. So that's necessary to be told. It is, yes. Thank you, Brenda. Go ahead, Jefferson.
One thing I wanted to add too is the person who spoke with the New Hampshire DOE said that they've actually used some of the systems that Brenda had put into place as an example for other districts in the state to use, just because of how effective it was.
What's that? Yeah. Thank you, Brenda.
Just one quickly. We also had our health inspection, and she came in. I asked that she come in personally and do it. This is just a lot easier than trying to do it walking around with a phone. And she didn't find anything and said, we'll see you in a year. So that was pretty nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Say hi to Doug.
I will.
All right, moving along.
All right, next up, I will ask the board to approve my teacher nominations for 2021-22, please.
I'll make the motion that we accept the teacher nominations for 2021-2022 as was presented by the superintendent.
Second.
Second by Paul. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, if I could have a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Carrier,
Yes.
Paul Bistette,
Yes.
Sue Cormier, Maureen Izzy.
That motion passes unanimously. The renominations are accepted.
Thank you very much. And then the district annual report card, I had sent a draft out to everybody, and it's in the school board folder for review. The I-2 committee reviewed this at the I-2 meeting and made a couple recommendations for changes. I don't know if we need to go through it. I don't think that that's probably necessary, but I certainly can answer questions, and I think we should talk about a distribution date and how you would like that to go out. This will be a report that we do annually now for the board to approve, each March or April. And then something that will be widely distributed to staff and the community and parents, and obviously put on our website.
Has everybody had the opportunity to read this district report card that was sent out? Okay. Are there any questions pertaining to the district report card that we want answered?
I just have a couple of corrections
Yeah.
I'll give to.
Deb's got a couple corrections,
I'll
okay?
give them to Dan.
Are there any other questions? Okay, no, because Dan, when would you like to get this submitted and put out? What is the date that you'd like to have? So we can put, I'll make the motion to do that for you.
Well, I think with the amount of information that's gonna go out in the next week or so, I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna put the survey results out, and we're gonna be putting out the information about the potential of reopening and all that. So, you know, I'm thinking, you know, that probably within the next couple of weeks, you know, that would make sense. Maybe the first week of April would make sense. But I do want to thank the administrative team, and most specifically Barbara Slayton. Barbara was the one that put this whole thing together for us as we fed information to her, and, you know, it looks wonderful because of her. So Barbara, can't thank you enough for all the great work you did on this thing, so appreciate it.
So I'll make the motion that we accept the district report card for 2020, 2021, and authorize the superintendent to distribute it as necessary, no later than April 5th. Second by Delaney. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, if I could have a roll call vote.
Christie Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Yes.
Sue Cormier,
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Super.
That
Thank you.
motion passes unanimously. Again, on behalf of the board, to the administration, thank you very much for the amount of time and work that went into this. It's an outstanding district report card for our first one, and I think you guys did an outstanding job.
Thank you. And that is all I had for tonight.
All right, are there any questions for Superintendent Legallo pertaining to his report? All right, we're gonna move, oh no, it's Jules' time, we're gonna take a break. She'll kill me.
Time it right at the break.
All right, we're gonna go right to the curriculum report. Jewel will touch on a few items and we'll keep moving.
So the report was in the school board drive, so hopefully you saw it. It has updates on the upcoming PD. Did talk about the plans for our summer PD. Our focus is a little different this summer. We want to use the time to work on some instructional planning and curriculum work, since that kind of got put on hold throughout the year, so that the staff could focus on what they needed to focus on. So we're going to take a different attack on our summer PD work this summer, trying to skim through and see what else. The first year of our teacher eval plan is coming to an end, and so far things seem to be going really well. I know Carissa did a presentation, I'm sorry I missed that part, on the portrait of a graduate, so there were some notes on the work that we're doing in that report as well. And then that was about it. I hope everybody also saw the update on the theater kids that I put at the end, because they did have a virtual festival this weekend. We were at the Opera House from about 12 to 5 on Saturday, and Megan Surratt did earn an All-Star Acting Award from the state adjudicators, so that was a huge honor for her.
Excellent, thank you, Jewel. Are there any questions for Jewel pertaining to her curriculum director's
Deb.
report?
Deb?
Can you just talk a little bit about Discovery Ed and the survey that you did?
Yep.
With the responses and the,
So Discovery Ed was an online program tool that we had explored the year that we actually started the curriculum cycle. Because if you'll remember, I created that whole big 5-year cycle, and then we spent the first year implementing math and ELA. And then we were supposed to go into year 2, which would be now, which was COVID. But during the time that we met with math and ELA, we explored Discovery Ed, which is a phenomenal online tool that Sue had mentioned, and we had talked about. I had talked about it with Ken even before the teachers saw it, because they were very interested in using it predominantly to support our science and social studies curriculum in the elementary and middle school. However, when COVID hit, we decided as a district that it was an incredible tool to provide for all of our staff
because it gave them all sorts of incredible online tools to use with the kids. And since this was back in March when we were fully remote, that's when we began it, because Discovery Ed started offering it for free temporarily to help schools out. So we got it for free. A number of staff started using it, so we decided in September to purchase it for the district so they would have the tools, since we were going to be hybrid, and we were going to use it as an experimental time as well to see how many of the staff used it and how much it would be implemented, to see if we wanted to move forward with making it an actual part of our programming, especially for science and social studies. We did provide it for all 4 subject areas during this last year just because of the circumstances, but I gathered that data so that I could see what we want to do moving forward. I know that Susan and Ken, obviously Ken's school uses it at the middle school much more than anyone else at this point. I know that Sue and I have had conversations, and she definitely wants to keep it as a tool for her teachers for science and social studies, since at the elementary school we don't have a lot of other programming type tools for those subjects. Unfortunately, this year with everything else going on, the Paul Smith staff didn't have a lot of time to fully implement it, so Sue and I talk a lot about what we want to do over the summer to give them that time so that next year they can start. For the high school, it's more of a supplemental tool, so it's kind of been a hit or miss as to who really uses it and who doesn't. So I need to continue those conversations with Carrie and Tim so we can decide what we want to do with it moving forward for the high school. So that's what that data collection was for, because I'm trying to get a sense of where we're at, who really needs it, how much do we need to continue with, do we need it for every subject, or are we focusing on science and social studies, all that kind of stuff.
And is the cost of it for, by usage, a number of teachers, or?
It's by like classroom seating licenses, but you can do it by school, you can do it by subject area, so you really have a lot of flexibility in how much of it you purchase, which is why I really want some data to make decisions based on what's really going to be used.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Jewel? All right, thank you, Jewel.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to our special ed report with Rebecca for a couple of quick items.
Yeah, so I know everyone, good evening everyone, has had a chance to read the report, so I welcome any questions. In terms of hitting highlights, I think one of the bigger issues we're facing in special ed right now are the number of referrals that we're getting. We've had 20, just in the months of February and March. And it might even be a little bit more than that. I tried to calculate all the ones coming from Compass Classical. There's quite a bit there. So that does burden, I would say, related service providers, special education case managers, nothing that I don't think the board is aware of, but it definitely compounds the already overwhelmed feeling of folks working in special ed right now. So trying to handle that, I've decided that, and I can't distinguish COVID-related challenges to learning-related challenges, so I don't use that in my decision-making. For me, if a student is presenting as having educational difficulties or whatnot, we pursue it and try to tease that out regardless, and that's something that I think I've heard some districts are getting a little bit caught up in, and I don't want to do that because I don't think I can adequately tease that out. And then the other pieces of my report speak mostly to just updating all of our shared drives for staff. That's been ongoing for the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 months, but I would say I can confidently say it's been finalized. So all the resources online for any document related to special education or McKinney-Vento are there for all staff to access at any time, including resources for things that they do regularly, writing IEPs, writing goals, writing the present levels. So I want it to be a site that they can go to independently, seek resources to help them do the job more proficiently. And we have run our data report for indicator 11. We did have 2 areas that we need to work with the DOE on in terms of timeliness, but it looks like the dates were entered incorrectly. I spoke with the DOE representative today, and we can fix those. So it looks to be we will be 100% compliant once those are fixed.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. Are
You're
there
welcome.
are there any questions for Rebecca? Go ahead, Cecile.
I read your report, and your administration part seems to be very good, but we never hear anything about the students. Is there, as far as getting a composite of what level of needs you are addressing, or would that be too cumbersome?
So because, and I know, Cecile, you were able to borrow the procedural handbook, and within special education, there are so many areas of identification, and oftentimes you see different specific concerns with some of the different areas. So emotional disturbance presents with a whole host of different concerns than, let's say, specific learning disability. So I'm happy to put something together for the board that indicates what we're working on and what that looks like perhaps for different types of disabilities. But I would say it's fluid, it's student-centered and individualized, hence, that idea of the IEP. So it's hard to really narrow it down because it is so individual for each student. But I can definitely work to put something together for you.
Okay, it doesn't have to be, specific, but I mean, it would be nice to know the different categories that you're actually dealing with.
Sure, I could do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any other questions for Rebecca? All right, thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll move along now to our Paul Smith School Report with Sue. Good evening, Sue.
Everyone. I'll keep it very brief because we've had a long evening. Couple of things that I want to focus on is just all of the wonderful things that everyone has done to make our Read Across America week such a wonderful week. We had many community members read bedtime stories to our kids. So if you don't frequent Facebook, because I know a lot of people don't, please feel free to go to our Facebook page and you'll get to see Dan, Jewel, our mayor, reading stories to our kids at night. So that was very well done, and I want to thank Mel for coordinating that and reaching out to all those community members. I also wanted to focus on the transition that we're experiencing at Paul Smith School from remote learners to hybrid learners. I didn't put the comparative numbers in this month because there were just too many of them, but essentially a quick synopsis. We moved 17 remote learning students from remote learners to hybrid learners. So we have a huge, this month from February to March was the biggest month of transition of bringing kids into school, and I'm receiving somewhere between 1 and 3 phone calls a day wanting to move their kids back into school. So other than our hiccup with regard to our COVID case that we had last week, we're really seeing a major trend in bringing our kids back to school. The other thing I just wanted to mention was we are using Turbo Tiger for our curriculum in guidance, and that's something that through one of Barb's grants we purchased for not only the elementary school but the middle school, and that focuses on character traits for kids. It's very well done because there's a video component to it, and we can also reach out to our remote learners. And then what we're really excited about is looking forward to next year, because we're pretty optimistic, and the leadership team and myself, as well as different cohort groups of teachers, will be meeting on Monday afternoons for about 3 to 4 hours to start planning for our summer as well as next fall. We're hoping that next fall, and many of you already know this, we're hoping that we'll be able to open up with our full house model ready to run. So that's really exciting news.
Thank you, Sue. Are there any questions for Sue? All right, thank you again, Sue.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, we're going to move along to our middle school report with Ken. Ken's right here with us anyways.
Thank you very much. I think I'm in there. Give me a second to call it up on my phone. As I've been doing every month, we're really keeping track of our kids and our movements as the same way that Susan is into our parent request to to have our fully remote kids go into a hybrid model, and we continue to have the same sort of trends in that direction. One of the other trends that we have is that we're our most needy students. We have a few of them who are 4-day-a-week students, and in many cases, those are individuals who are special ed students who need daily, 4-day-a-week services. And some of our, and Mr. Trapton works with our students who are court involved with respect to truancy and that sort of thing, so we're addressing that with those students. Also, little kind of nuts and bolts things, trimester 2 progress reports continue to go out, and our response from our parents on progress reports has really been tremendous. They're electronic, they go out to them, the parents call for feedback, they interact with teachers if they have concerns about student performance, so those are going all well. And then the rest of my report I devoted to the statewide assessment system, which is going to go into place this spring, and it'll be the first time we do a statewide assessment that's part of our evaluation since Mr. Trafton's in my first year here, which was 2 years ago. Once we got the results of that report, we used it as an opportunity for us to take a hard look at how our students test, and we've used the state's program of allowing us to do interim testing. That is a test that we can take anytime we want. That's a lot like the actual test that it is, and what they call modular tests, and to be able to gear how our students perform on them, because it is the report card that's used to check, one of the measures that's used to report publicly with our students. So we don't teach to the test, but we make sure that our students are familiar with all of the operations that are part of the test, so that we're getting valid results, and it's not their difficulty with perhaps navigating through the answers and questions, so that they're able to show the best of what they know. So I sent a bunch of links to you folks. By all means, please feel free to do so. This week, we will be sending out a notice that came to us from the Department of Ed about the statewide test that will be going out. It's all of our students in grades 4 through 8, plus there's third graders in Sue's place, and there are some high schoolers that do their testing. But we're informing the parents of what is going to be happening. We'll be using the months of March and April to prepare for the administration of those tests, and those tests will be administered during the month of May. And there are plans, whether our students are in person or remote, for us to be able to provide them with those tests.
Thank you, Ken. Are there any, go ahead, it's the CEO.
Ken, the test that, was that something, what we did last year that you showed us?
Yes.
Oh, it was, okay.
Well, the test, it is the statewide assessment system. And the assessment system that we did in the fall was one that it was encouraged by the state for us to do that, and we complied with that for our own purposes. We're continuing to use that information for our own purposes, but the actual test that we will be administering in the spring will not only be for our own purposes, but it will be published to the community and to the state and used to compare our schools to other schools. So that's why we're doing everything we can to prepare for it, so our students to put on their best face.
Cecile, were you asking about the one that we did as like a demonstration?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the night that we actually gave the board examples from that. Yes.
That's the test, yeah. Are you as smart as a fifth grader? Yes, and the teachers right now take those tests in the classrooms, and they actually can put them up on the display and show what the questions look like, so they can have conversations about them before the students are going into them, so they're not going into them sort of blind. Or, yes.
Now, one more question.
Of course.
How come there were so many dropouts? Do you have any reason why?
Dropouts. In my report? In my report, the unenrolled. Unenrolled is not people who leave the school, it's people who leave the community. I'm glad you brought that up, because our student population has stayed steady at about 360, 361 students. And as I reported it to Dan, we were amazed to see that if that's the case, about 52 students have left our school to go to other communities since school began, and since our population is steady, that means that 52 or 53 kids have come in. So that means there's over 100 students who've been sort of in the flux, or about 25% of our population is transient. And I may have had conversations with other school board members about that transiency. So we're keeping an eye on that.
They really like you, that's why.
I hope they do. I try to be.
We all set with questions?
Thank you.
Seriously, Ken. They like you.
That's very kind of you to say so.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. Now we're gonna move to Jay, who's been patiently waiting there to give us his report.
I kind of like how you always give me credit. for being
30
patient,
seconds,
so,
30 seconds.
So, we're still hanging pretty tough with a lot that's going on. The numbers are still pretty, I'm concerned we have a smaller population. We have about 8 incidents since the last board meeting, which is kind of a nice thing still. About half of them are majors though, so we are kind of creeping up in that. Top 3 types of incidents I'm dealing with right now. Security still, when it comes to bypassing, kids are still trying to find ways around getting our security measures that I run. It's kind of a fun game. I feel like it's my version of a video game because I get to try to beat them as much as they try to beat me. Unfortunately for them, I win most of the time. Also threatening, so we had some students threatening some other students I was dealing with. And there was one where it was more of a truancy type of incident I was dealing with. So top 3 really, they're not so bad, but we're getting there. And a lot of it is the kids understanding. It's a great conversation during lunchtime and stuff when I go around and talk to the kids about, so I see you're doing this. It's kind of age appropriate that you're experimenting and looking online. It's just not school appropriate. And it's just like we tell kids you have filters when you're around different people. You have different filters when you're in school doing internet stuff. So it's kind of a life lesson we're working on. But that's what I've got.
Excellent, thank you, Jay. Are there anybody got any questions for Jay? Thanks, Jay. All right, now we're gonna move on to our high school report. We'll go to Carrie. A few things.
So I just wanted to highlight a couple things for the board. I know that they're in here for recognitions, but we did host an instant admissions day with Lakes Region Community College for our seniors, and 5 seniors participated in that. They had a remote option and we had an in-person option, but so 5 participated in that. There's a student update listed for you that 27% of our student body earned honors and high honors for quarter 2, which was an increase of 32% from quarter 1. I'm very impressed with our students and all the due diligence that they're doing in their academics, but also in their co-curricular pieces. We were still able to have our winter carnival, which is still in process, and it's 2021, not 2012, which is listed. But the kids did a great job with the snow sculptures. The history for the snow sculptures is that kids would work on them every day after school for the entire week, and have 2 or 3 hours a day and then paint them on Saturday morning. These students actually were able to do it in 2 days. So we had to keep the cohorts separated, and then they were able to do all that, and we actually judged them on Friday afternoon. So I'm very impressed with the kids and what they were able to accomplish. So for recognitions, I would like to just recognize the one-act performance that was put on by the seniors at the Opera House on the 19th and 20th. And I'd like to congratulate Liz Guillot, who was recognized as the Division IV 2021 New Hampshire Athlete Scholar. So this is the first time that any student from Franklin High School has been awarded this distinction. So we're very proud of her. Susan, is Sue talking about shredded cheese? I think. It's like I'm hungry. I'd like to congratulate our varsity boys and girls basketball teams for qualifying for the playoffs. And then I also want to congratulate the students that were selected as cast and crew for Sweeney Todd. And then last but not least, last year we had a recipient win the Live and Learn Scholarship. And so this year, we actually have 3 students that have won the Live and Learn Scholarship from Colby Sawyer. And there's 15 of these scholarships are awarded for area high schools, but our school got 3 of them. So congratulations to Laurel May, Jillian Sweat, and Zoe Sylvester. So proud of them. So in the board, you can see it says that they've earned free tuition for 4 years in exchange for living on campus and becoming a residential student. I'm very excited for them. Yep.
All right, are there any questions for Carrie?
Do I know what year it is? Yes.
Well, Tim's over there waiting patiently.
Yeah. I'm going to try to keep this real brief. I don't know what Jay's doing wrong at the middle school, but we've only had like 4 or 5 minor incidents in the last month.
Minor.
No, overall, students have been doing well. As Carrie reported, they are performing better. They are attending school more regularly. And I think that they're generally excited to be in the building when they are here. I do want to say thank you to the board for your support earlier this evening for the 5x5 schedule for next fall, so thank you very much. And that is it for me tonight.
Any questions for Tim? Thank you, Tim. Dan, you're not on here, but I want to kind of give you an opportunity because you've been patiently sitting on here with us, listening away. One of the things I do want to just say to you, and I know I've already brought it to your attention when I was here meeting with Chief Mike Foss, is that your continued painting that you're doing at the school here. I mean, I know your staff is extremely proud and happy of it, to the point where they actually came into the SAU to look for me, to have me go out and look at the continuation of the painting that you're doing at the high school here. So if you just want to touch base on that a little bit.
They get a lot of feedback from teachers and also students, so they are proud of what they're doing. But since I got a chance to talk, I'd like the board to know that I am working with some of the students at high school for community service. So they are working with us. They're doing a great job. The kids are really getting into it. Just to earn their community service hours. I'm taking on as many as we can handle. And the 3 that are working with us now are doing fantastic, and they're adding their hours up on a weekly basis.
Excellent, great. Anybody have any maintenance or facility questions that Dan may be able to answer right now? All right, thank you, Dan. Great job at like I said, at the high school. We appreciate it.
I'll forward that on. Thank you much.
Thank you. All right, to the administration, we're getting ready to go to policy, so I know your cameras are all going to be going off. So thank you to all of you, and have a great remainder of the week. Thanks, you guys. Great job tonight. Thank you. All right, we're going to go on to agenda item 9, which is our policies. We'll try to get through these fairly quickly. Our first group of them is our second reading, so hopefully you've all had the opportunity to read them. If you have any questions, this will be the time. So our second reading, I'm not going to go naming all the policy. I'm just going to tell you the policy and the letter for it. Policy for this is for second reading and approval. It's policy BGAA, policy BHE, policy EB, policy EBB, policy GBCD, policy GBCE, policy JCA, and policy JLCJ. This is for second reading and approval, so I'll need the motion on that, please.
Can I, you need a motion before we talk?
Yeah, you got
Motion
it
first,
before.
yeah, go ahead, yeah, good.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Deb. Do I have a second? Second by Cecile. Was that Cecile?
Yes.
Okay, so Cecile. Now we can open up for discussion.
All right, policy BGAA, the first one, policy development, adoption review. Page 3, number 4, at the end, it says digital copy. I think that should say print copy. We had gone back and forth, and we actually asked the School Boards Association about that. And we had determined that we thought we should be keeping one print copy in the SAU. So I would recommend you change digital to print copy.
All right, so is there any other discussion other than what the superintendent's recommending, and that can be part of the whole minute thing and be included into it for once it's passed? Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, if I can have a roll call vote, please.
Christy Martin,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Paul Bissett,
Okay.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Maureen O'By.
Yes.
That motion passes. Those policies are for second reading and adoption are accepted. And the change will be corrected in policy BGAA as was presented by the superintendent. Okay, next is first reading only. That is policy BA, which is our school board self-evaluation and goal setting, and policy BDF, which is our advisory committee to the board. First reading, I need a motion to accept for first reading.
So moved.
So moved by Paul. Do I have a second? Second by Maureen. Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question on PEA, not about the policy itself, but when's the last time we acted on this policy?
The last time we, as a board, acted on the policy?
Before my time,
Yeah, it's been a while.
that's why we're bringing it.
That's why we're bringing it and changing it and getting dates, because there was no real guidance to it. So that's why you will see that there's guidance and we've set dates and so a more robust policy with this. All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, if I get a roll call vote, please.
Christie Martin.
Yes.
Tim Dow.
Yes.
Deb Brown. Yes. Delaney Courier.
Yes.
Paul Doucette.
Yes.
Cecile Cormier.
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Those two policies are accepted for first reading. Next on this, on policy section, withdrawals. These are withdrawals. Policy BG, which is board policy process, is going to be replaced by BGAA. Policy BGA, which is your policy development system, is going to also be replaced by BGAA. Policy BGB, policy adoption, is also replaced by policy BGAA. Policy BGC, which is your policy review and evaluation manual accuracy check, is replaced by BGAA policy. BGE is your policy dissemination, replaced by BGAA. And policy JEC is your manifest educational hardship, and that one is replaced by policy JCA. So I need a motion for those policies to be withdrawn and adopt. Thank you, Paul. Adopted by the new policy. So moved by Paul. Do I have a second? Second by Maureen. Okay, whichever one. I don't care who they put down. I thought I heard Maureen. But Cecile will use you too. All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, if I could have a roll call vote.
Christie Martin.
Yes.
Tim Dow.
Yes.
Deb Brown.
Yes.
Delaney Courier.
Yes.
Paul Doucette.
Yes.
Cecile Cormier.
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Yes.
That motion is accepted. Those policies are withdrawn and replaced by the ones named. All right, that'll end policy. Before we go to agenda item 10, are there any late items we brought before the board?
Yes, I would ask that you accept the resignation effective at the end of the school year for Megan Kelleher, Paul Smith School Guidance Counselor.
Second.
So, motion been made. I'll make that motion with regret as presented by the superintendent. Paul, it sounds like you're gonna second it, so we're good with that. So Paul has seconded it. Is there any discussion? We got a little while, a few more things still. No other discussion, so if I could have a roll call vote?
Christie Martin.
Yes.
Tim Dow.
Yes.
Deb Brown. Yes. Delaney Courier.
Yes.
Paul Doucette.
Yes.
Cecile Cormier.
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Resignation is accepted with regret. Any other late items to be brought before the board, Dan?
Nope.
All right. Do you have any public participation to be brought before the board?
I have one email, but it's unclear whether she wants me to read it to you or not, so I'm gonna hold it till
Okay.
next month.
All right. We have nobody within the cafeteria for public, other than Carissa. You got anything? Carissa's good. All right, so we have no one, so I'm gonna close that portion. The last item we have here before is we do have a need to go into a non-public. We do have a need for a non-public, so if I can have a motion for someone to go into non-public under 91A, paragraph 2A and C for personnel, please. So moved by Paul, seconded by Deb. If I could have a roll call vote?
Sorry. Christie Martin.
Yes.
Tim Dow.
Yes.
Deb Brown.
Yes.
Delaney Courier.
Yes.
Paul Doucette.
Yes.
Cecile Cormier.
Yes.
Maureen Opie.
We are in non